Hi there, lovely Jules here. You know, if you've ever tried to stop drinking using willpower and found yourself right back where you started, this video will explain exactly why that keeps happening. Because the problem isn't you, it's the way you've been trying to do it. So in this video, I'm going to show you what's actually going on with willpower and how to start thinking about this differently and a much more effective approach that I call the most loving thing, along with some simple, practical things that you can start doing straight away. Hi there, quickly. I know if you're questioning your relationship with alcohol that you are not weak and you're not lacking willpower. There are some things though that I wish somebody had told me before I stopped drinking, and I've put those in a free guide in the description box below. It'll help you get the clarity you need so that you can move forward today. So when I tried to stop drinking, I tried everything. I tried willpower, which, just like gritting my teeth and going, I can do it, I can do it. And, I use that phrase that I've now come to hate, which is pull my big girl pants on, I can manage this. And I think I used to tell myself, well, I'm an intelligent, well-educated woman. It's not that hard, surely, to stop doing something. There's lots of things I've stopped doing in my life. Why is this so hard? And I knew I wasn't addicted in that alcoholic way. So that just made it all the worse because I knew I wasn't an alcoholic. And when I started working with women, what I realized is willpower, as you've probably figured out by now, is a finite resource. It doesn't last. You can start off with all the best intentions in the world. You can muster up, all of the kind of internal fight and determination to not drink. But at the end of the day, that expression of energy on your mind and your body is just exhausting. And part of the problem is if you're not putting other things in place instead of alcohol and just hoping that by thinking I'm not going to drink it will work, it never will. So that's part of what I'll be talking about later, is about this idea of putting other things in place. But willpower just doesn't last. It's a finite resource. And I know, and you probably know, it's utterly exhausting. And that's one of the reasons why it, when you've tried, it doesn't work. And I think part of the problem that goes along with that is that when you grit your teeth and do that willpower thing, and then it fails and it evaporates in the way that it does, and then you drink again because you've just exhausted from it, then you get into the blame and shame cycle where you're giving yourself a hard time about the fact that you can't even have enough willpower to not drink, and it's a really horrible cycle. And I remember being in that cycle for a long time before I actually did quit, and I didn't use willpower at that point. And then there's day counting, and that brings along with it its own challenges. If you've had the apps or the trackers, you'll find that there's a lot of reasons why that didn't work. But certainly from my point of view, I think the main reason that it doesn't work is because you are actually doing the one thing that you don't want to do, which is thinking about alcohol every day. App, tick, tracker, tick. Today I didn't drink, today I didn't drink, today I didn't drink. It is just thinking about alcohol on repeat. So to me, we should be thinking about how else our life can change in order to make space for more lovely things than thinking about alcohol every day. And personally, I can't think of anything worse really than counting the days years and years after I stopped drinking. At the point of recording this, I know it's sometime in May, and I only know that because of the work I do. That's my soberversary. But I never think about it. And if I didn't do this work, I would never think about how long I'd been sober. Just, it doesn't matter to me anymore. And I think that is, to me, the goal of giving up alcohol, is to get you to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. It's not important, and you can just live your life without reference to it at all. And I think this idea of, constantly looking at alcohol every day and your thoughts about it every day, to me is entirely counterproductive. Another thing that I know lots of women try is moderation. And you usually do that before you try your willpower and your day counting. But sometimes you try the other things and think, well, maybe I can moderate. It just depends. But moderation essentially is pretty exhausting. I know what generally happens is we've got this so-called guideline from the government, which says that we should limit our drinking to 14 units a week. And I've seen lots of women try this, trying to drink 2 units a day, which is actually quite small if you poured it into a glass. And it's very different from the usual. I know I used to have a big balloon glass and fill it up, like, say, almost full. So pouring 2 units and trying to make them last all evening is another kind of application of willpower. Or you do the other thing, which I've seen lots of women do, which is maybe have 1 or 2 drinks during the week and save up your allowance for the weekend. But it just means that you never get out of the cycle of drinking. And the constant, endless negotiation with yourself is just, again, going to wear you out. And it will fail ultimately, because you've probably already tried it, this. And I think one of the problems with moderation as well is that we have been fed this story through marketing that we should all be able to be successful moderators. If you think about every advert you've ever seen, it's healthy, skinny, lovely people, 4 generations of a family round an outdoor table, having a tipple. The kids are running around and everybody's happy and joyful and everybody looks really well. But that actually speaks to people who naturally moderate, as they do in more European cultures like Italy and Spain. We have a very different culture. And to be honest, if alcohol was advertised the way the majority of us are drinking, which is a bottle of wine sitting on the sofa every night watching Netflix, nobody would buy it, would they? Nobody would buy it. So moderation is problematic from the point of view of just how much headspace it takes up. And I just want to add a little bit of information. There's a really great book called Drink: The New Science of Alcohol by Professor David Nutt, who was our government's chief drugs and alcohol advisor, I believe. And in the introduction to his book, he actually says that if alcohol was introduced today, you know, it was a new substance, and scientists all sat around and analysed it and understood what it does to the body, the subsequent effects on things like the NHS and health services and so on. And the conclusion that they would come to is that the recommended amount of alcohol we should have is 1 glass of wine a year. 1 glass of wine a year. So even the government's target moderation idea of 14 units a week is still not really that good for you. So I think any kind of idea of what you've tried, your willpower, your day counting, your moderation, if you've tried that repeatedly and it hasn't worked, then you're not to blame, because what you're not doing is addressing what really needs to be addressed, which is what is going on inside you and your relationship with alcohol, and to understand that and how it's affecting your life, not the little idea of counting the days and the, you know, fighting your way through it. Those are quite small ideas against the idea of looking at alcohol in the way that you relate to it. And I know most women that I've worked with have been through all of these 3 main cycles and gone back and over again. But when they take a different path, the one that I'm recommending, self-blame becomes irrelevant, because they've chosen, in the same way that you can, to be empowered to make different choices for yourself. So if you've been stuck in that cycle of willpower, day counting and moderation, I want you to take one thing from this. It's not that you can't do it. It's that you've been trying in ways that were never going to work. And the shift for me came when I stopped asking, how do I make myself not drink, and driving myself crazy in the process? And I started asking a completely different question. What's the most loving thing I can do for myself right now? Because that question changes everything. It takes you out of force, out of fighting yourself, and brings you back to you. And from that place, you start making very different choices that actually support you. Not just in stopping drinking, but in creating a life where you don't feel you need to. Thank you for watching to the end. Lots of love.